Oh, that brings me to a question. You've been talking about traveling and how much benefits is different people get. Uh, on the point of traveling, many say you travel a lot. You're barely in office, but their worry as journalists that they also feel they can have a chance to travel, but they do not have funds and they do not have that later. But you've put it straight that they can have a letter that can help them travel, but they do not have the funds. We have a lot of tournaments that are all over the country. For example, a World Cup, someone would say, I would like to have a chance as a journalist, but I'm not working with a media house. How do you help these people?
Well, we need to understand that certain privileges are calibrated to a certain office. They identify to a certain office, certain privileges. When I was elected as a president, I was extended uh, all expenses paid, trip to watch the World Cup in Qatar. So if you're not a president, you're not going to get that. It was the same with the IPS Congress. So certain privileges are within an office, and even if you choose to ignore them, they cannot be extended to Jeremiah or. Two, without any fear of contradiction, USPA is the preeminent journalism body in the country in terms of value and substance. Okay? And so should be the president as well. Trips are fact-finding missions. They're areas to interact with experience. The areas of lobbying. The areas to make a case for you, for the institution elsewhere. And why would it, and unapologetically, so why should the biggest journalism body in the country not take part in some of those initiatives, in fact-finding missions? What will be wrong? If even less associations have certain privileges extended, so why shouldn't an association of our nature and its president and its, the top personnel within that office, who is also happens to be the chief spokesperson of that association, don't be able to take part in those fact-finding missions? Why? And we should not even be apologetic about it at any point in time. Those are supposed to be ideal, and those are supposed to be acceptable for any office. Any office, the moment you accept that you have not earned certain rights, certain privileges, you've not earned a certain degree of, acceptance and acknowledgement across your borders. What will be is, well, that communicates that this association has not grown enough to deserve certain functions, but it does. Vision has the power to project and convince people for you to take part in those areas I've mentioned, interacting with the world, fact-finding missions, areas that to do with, because you have some campaigns where they say, yes, the president is not, the president needs to travel, that's the only place where you have a meeting for us to discuss and have certain areas of engagement. So, the ISPA president's office is a big office, my brother, and those are not enough privileges. Actually, the president should travel more, and so are other executive members. But what we have done as well is that we've made it possible. Sometimes because of the confidentiality, sometimes you may not, I'm not in position to make certain claims. But I've personally had interventions when people are going to be funded or facilitated facilitation facilitation sometimes is not just about the cash transactions. It could be about immigration facilitation. But I've personally been consulted or asked to intervene for many of our people. It's just that I may not mention names because it takes away the confidence of those people too, including some who mention those things have. And also recall that the minister is our patron, and also have good working relations with the National Council of Sports. So, from yes, well, just to keep within the boundaries of confidentiality, just know that I've taken part and I take part in some of those negotiations that allow certain large numbers of groups, certain funding, to prevail over those matters. So that's how I could answer that.
We have a number of life members into the association. A part I like so much, or many that I love to see when it comes to USPA assembly. But many of these ones, how do you help them in their day-to-day life? Because some of them are even not active journalists at this point of time, or they got into other businesses. However much they still do follow the sport and the organization at some point. What initiative is there to help them in their day-to-day life in case they are in need of any help?
First and foremost is that we have been blessed over the years that no one leaves ESCOM and they become needy, because it's it's a layer of leadership that usually strikes corporate confidence to take up most of our past leaders into other offices, whether it's royalty, business, religion. We have a couple elsewhere. Most of those ex-presidents, ex-general secretary, ex-vice presidents are consultants across all those layers I've tried to. They are not needed. Actually, most of the cases where you run to them with these proposals, they say, you'll need our help more than we need your help. Some even contribute in terms of donations. They contribute in terms of funding. They contribute in terms of their knowledge. They contribute in personal trips where we could be challenged. That's why we have members of high repute elsewhere. High repute. Go to every institution, whether it's Ministry of Finance, you're going to find Jim Mugunga. Whether it's the Catholic Church, you're going to find our founder. Whether it's the Anglican Church, you're going to find. Whether it's the monarchy, Uganda, you find leaders. All the high-profile places, you have a mark. You have fragments of USPA elsewhere. So, our senior people are not needy. Yes, but most of the times they've asked us to be that, how can we help you more than what can you help us? However, it's also incumbent on us to create areas where we make it comfortable for people that will leave these offices. And some of the things that we've been looking at is that we've been looking at insurance. Yeah, for health insurance, mainly, because as you get into, the evening of your years, is that there are certain, secure health boundaries that should be required of you. So we're trying to do areas like that. We also try to create areas that try to give some of our leaders social value, intrinsic value. Often visits. We also take part in their collaboration you know, events, Thanksgiving, and all those areas. So you want to take part uh, so that you have a decisive role in all those things. That keeps them, motivated, because for you to have a member that even even without trying to challenge their spirit and loyalty, but every time you do not reach out and show confidence and show the spirit of unity and brotherhood, like our motto is, you know then it may not connect well with some of those forces. But every time we do things like those and take part into you know the areas of the social cohesion, it also elevates their mood. It keeps them alive to the association. Genuinely accepts their years of dedication and service.
Basic question, as we close, as we come to a close, basic question: how can someone join USPA?
USPA has patterns, acceptable patterns and constitutionally permissible patterns of for you to become a member. You have to be a sports journalist, or at least related to that. Of course, we have several layers of, because there are members who affiliate, they're honorary members as well. Those those were endorsed depending on how we've exercised and examined, their impact to sports. Those can be honorary members. We have affiliate members. Those could be university, still doing university and may want to pursue a career into. We have, full members that have gone through every layer, able to pay, subscription. And we also have members on probation, like you, who are yet, to be elevated to full member, but we are still studying their conduct and behavior before we elevate them into full members. So, but just for the ordinary member like you, we begin to consider you after we acknowledge that you do sports journalism. So we acknowledge you. After we acknowledge you, we begin to so we have confirmation that indeed you're someone who associates with the sports industry in terms of, one, the value, practice, but also how you interact within the field. Then later we ask you to submit your interest. So you submit your interest. But your interest is not on submission and endorsement. No. When you make that submission, it's exercised through the patterns of how you become a member. You send that submission through the secretariat, obviously, formally. Then it goes through the membership committee. So the membership committee now begins to exercise what it requires as the consummate criteria. Then it's going to ask for supporting documents, letters, from the supervisors, for instance, then endorsement from other people in the field who have watched and monitored you along the course, other supporting documents. Then they're going to study you for at least 6 months of probation. After that 6 months, when they are satisfied that indeed you merit to join this association as a member, they are going to communicate to the ExCom to approve. If it's red, they may still state and say, no, we still need to monitor this member up to a certain point of time. So you may still stay within the pipeline until when the membership committee is fully and objectively satisfied that you now qualify to be a member. Then the ExCom will have no objections but to endorse you as a full member. Then the post matters will happen now. After that, then you begin to pay, subscription, take part into activities as required by you. So those are the traditions of the association. But those traditions are also a reconciliation of our constitution. They, they, the two work in tandem, and they have to have a clear line of association.
In Uganda, we do not have a specific course, namely as sports journalism, but we do have journalism, or maybe journalism and mass communication. For a student out there, many would like to join sports journalism, but maybe the criteria of joining USPA as an association may be a little bit of short of them, because they do not have the experience, so they have not been there for other people to have a look at them. But how better can you help this person coming from, let me say, a school like Humkat or Makerere?
In our tenure, we relaxed the avenues to access our membership. One, because the world has become more digitized. That's why we digitize our submissions to allow members flexibility. That was the first point we did. We also trimmed, sliced down from I think 7 to around 4 endorsers, people that could endorse you and say, yes, Jeremiah is of high repute. We still dropped that down, and the premise was this, is that yes, you may not have a large quorum of people who are going to endorse you, but we've been studying you in the field along the way. We've examined the value of your work. We've had negotiations of your character, physical interactions with you. We've had a lot of testimonies about you. We see and study your work. So why should we make it extremely stretching for you to become a member? So that's what we did. We also created a forum of affiliate members. These ones embed from universities of higher learning. So we update them on facilitators, the degree of internship, the places and slots, and how we can help. We invite them to our meetings and facilitate them to be there. We also ask some, we've also been attaching some to individuals to grow and study with them. So that we also roll the carpet for them. That's what we've also done. Even last year, I went out of my way. I went to universities when we have the young reporters programs for them to submit to enjoy some of those things from the young reporters programs, to travel and access the world of sports journalism. But also they also, not arrogantly saying, but sometimes we are being called out to be extremely stringent. But who is not stringent? Look at the law. Look at the legal regime. It also has a protectionism around itself. Look at accountants and auditors. Look at engineers and architects. Every reputable institution should have some models of protectionism, because that's how you're going to keep a certain institution, the values and traditions intact. If we don't, because if USPA was just a walk in and out, then it will not have the significance that it has now. If you treated it casually, as some may want us to treat it, we may not have found it in the way that we. Yeah, that's why even certain leadership layers have certain criteria of, do you merit to become its leader? Who merits to become its member? So that, arrogantly, that is also required for any, institution of high repute to have certain, boundaries to protect it. Yeah, because that keeps its traditions alive and intact, because if we decide to abuse all of those, then we might throw it away to whoever. And the moment we throw it away, We have given out our legacy. We've given out everything about it.
The very last one. The very last one. I know our time is not on our side, but a little bit even before the history, an issue concerning accreditation. In Uganda, I think a lot of clubs may have a lot of games, and a lot of organizations may have many educating programs that they would like to have sports journalists in front of them, or they would love to help sports journalists. But most of the time, it is more of everyone will come, because initially of late, everyone can be a sports journalist. Uh, One may not be even in USPA, but he's a sports journalist. Because, of course, we have a lot of radios. There are new students that come out of higher learning institutions. For example, we have been talking about Makerere, and he's working in Mitiana. He's out there. Another one is working in Fort Potro. You're not going to be telling them USPA. Some of them don't even know what USPA is all about. So, what criteria or what initiative is there to help in this accreditation process? Can USPA get to these different people so that its members could get something to gain from these programs?
The coming year, we are going to relaunch our regional offices. We already have regional office in the eastern side of the country. We have an attached office, like an extension of goodwill from someone in the West Nile. We also want to look to the west as well to relaunch, because those assemblies already existed, but we just want to repurpose them and we'll facilitate them with working machines, secretarial support, and occasionally some funding. We're also going to get leaders from those affiliations who report directly to the center. That will also be in a way to, one, to mobilize power centrally, but also nail and take away the degree of indifference that happens when people imagine that we've neglected those associations. The other, yes, but the other question, it was raised on, on the premise of, yes, you can be a sports journalist even without going into the right patterns that appraise you to that. The same way you can be an engineer. The same way you can be a doctor. The same way you can be an accountant. The same way you feel you can be anything until when you're caught. Until when you're caught out. So even those at a certain point, they make steps back to acquire the right definitions. Definitions in terms of, one, the practice, the ethics, the quorums of a sports journalist. So we can have stray people, great service, a huge name. They have a huge name and all those things. But at a certain point of time, that's why I raised is that, yes, you'll have that engineer, gwemukozesa ku kyalo, okamyufu, yateeka amasanyalaze, until when they are caught out, until when there's some damage. It doesn't mean that even, rightly packaged journalists do not make mistakes. No, but at least it gives you a layer of protection. It gives you some layer, of appraisal, of acceptance. So, even our stray people, some of them help to advance our work. So we'll continue to call them into our offices. Just invite them to our clinics, invite them to take up our scholarships so that we grow and enhance their value, so that it gives them a layer of protection at that point in time when they might be required to have them.
The accreditation bit is one that we would like to concentrate on after clearing all. That we have games. For example, Sports Club Villa is playing KCCA. How does USPA have an edge on these accreditations, so that its different members can get that, let me say, that chance first before any other member?
The value of membership is such that it has to create a certain pedestal for their members, as a priority basket. That's that should be the basic. But that also has to be realistic with the times, with expectations from other institutions, logistical expectations, interest expectations, and expenses as well. But what we are going to do is that we spent the first year of our tenure trying to remobilize our stakeholderships, to give an added layer of value to our members and access. And it helped because we saw a lot of goodwill from, for instance, the rugby union extending some of its support. And some of our federations are trying to relax on some of those stringent, trying to untie the knot. Previously, the knot was extremely tight. The other, and this is also primary, is that now in this tenure, now we are going to drop down a bit to now the physical organizations, meet clubs. We are going to use some of our members that are attached to those institutions and clubs for us to form a quorum and have a conversation on how to appraise our members as a priority basket when it comes to those areas of organization. And if those organs have, denounced some of our proposals, then we'll seek for other areas of interventions of how our members can then participate. If they deny that avenue, they should be in position to negotiate with us areas that perhaps create for us a window that makes our members' access a bit more comfortable.
Recently, a lot of individuals have been talking about the different briefcase federations. Many have cited cycling, but of course the results are coming. And it's in the same perspective that I would bring USPA. First of all, is USPA if a briefcase association?
Well, USPA and briefcase are completely disconnected things, and I'm glad we don't fall within that layer. We have an office, fully fledged, fully functional at Nambole. However, because our members work centrally, especially within the CMB, so it's easier for them to have a bit more access in areas around Lugogo, because this will be like the mecca of sports. So what we've been trying to do is to try and pursue another office setting around this area. We succeeded last year, but then the redevelopment of this place meant that we had to look for a place elsewhere. Yes, but it's something we are working on, and we'll have a decisive conclusion within the coming year.
All right, now you're going to take us briefly through the history, and then I think you then chip in with your parting shots.
There's something quite unique with all things that have extended significance. When Isaac Newton discovered the forces of gravity, there was a falling apple that dropped under a tree where he had comfortably sat. USPA has an aligned connection to that as well. The founders, the trio, Fred Sechito, Remy Mayanja, Moses Ogutu, formed USPA under that oak tree at Sheraton Gardens. That's where they sat, looking over their shoulders for their life, because it was a risk at that time for you to even form an association of that nature. Why? Because all journalists were covered under Uganda Journalists and Writers Association, formed by the Prime Minister then, Chintu Musoke. So any breakout of a parallel body meant that you've gone to war with the state. Fred Sechito then, as a 25-year-old working for Muno Publications, was quite uncomfortable with how the media direction yet then was. UJWA, was torn sunder by forces to do with the DP faction and the UPC faction. So all journalists had been aligned to either. So journalists then had become pets to DP or UPC. And sports journalists then felt that their voices were not illustrated. They were choked within the system. Because they were choked within the system, and I think that's the nature of even sports journalists, we always try to find, like a headline banger for ourselves. We try to create a pathway. So they felt they needed to form something that would liberate them from the political journalism at the time. So Sechito, Mzee Fred Sechito, gracefully informed his friends and asked them to be brave enough, because it was such a high risk for them to take, because they were literally antagonizing, putting themselves, in arms with the regime at the time. He convinced them to start this association. Even the day this association was formed, 1970, sitting under that oak tree shade at Sheraton Gardens, they were looking over their shoulders, because they felt that if anything leaks out, they were fearing for their lives. The outcome was not very pleasing, but they were brave enough and they formed the association. The first outing was on May 1st May or 31st May 1970. It was between sports journalists and fans at then Nachivubo Stadium. And that was the first outing ever of USPA. After that outing, Mzee Freddy Sechito was then elevated to the chairmanship. Then you could not be a president, because the title of president was only exclusive to the president of the time, Idi Amin Dada. So all the first people were chairman at the time, or chairman at the time, because the state would not allow you to. So that's the history of USPA. That's how USPA was formed. Since then, it has gone through the layers. At a certain point, Mzee Fred Sechito was had to flee to exile after writing an opinion about the ultras of Simba FC. The next he had to flee for his safety. Spent 3 years working under Standard newspaper in Kenya. Then, but even in those 3 years, without its leader, USPA kept its spirit. And this is what I tell people. Even the forces that want to break it, USPA USPA is fortunate that its history allows it that even in times that are completely adversely distressing, it will always keep its spirit. Its candle will always stay. In those 3 years, the body still stayed in hiding. The leader had flown, but still the spirit was, stayed within, checked under doors or under beds, hiding for their lives, but but it continued to blossom. And as they returned, still, it seemed like the spirit had never died, and the association has continued to. Actually, at one point, I remember must have been around the 1980 something, is that there was a USPA gala that was held along the Parliamentary Avenue strip. I'll keep the name intact. there was a minister who had, who felt incensed with the music that was blaring from the USPA gala. He came and shut down the gala. He's like, "Are you disturbing my peace?" The gala was censored then. Well, and it took some pleading, of course. Some people of uh, good repute spoke to the minister. Then he said, "Okay, yeah, let them continue with." So his association has gone through a spate of challenges, spate of limitations, anarchy, but it will continue to survive the storm, and that's why it still exists to this day, and it has continuously had people of color, value, repute, and prominence elsewhere.
All right. Any last words for the people out there?
We are blessed to have this umbrella because this umbrella gives us a good bargaining power, and any disintegration from this umbrella only communicates anarchy, communicates a lack of collective responsibility, communicates a denial for us to live and coexist even with differences, even with limitations. If you continue to preach to other institutions on collective responsibility, on accountability, on living together as, and on appreciating our foundations, then we should also propel ourselves to the same. Let's have the carte blanche, to reach out to those, who feel maligned. Let's continue to live by a social contract, try and communicate to the public who should be our most important client. But let us also rise together and fall together as post-journalists, because no one will ever deeply care about us the way we would about ourselves. Every household will have its issues, but we can fight within our household. We can always exercise restraint within our household for us to live and coexist.
You are a very soft-spoken gentleman, or a humble gentleman. Don't you think that people at some point do take advantage of you?
No, that should be a quality. It should not be a demerit. When I just come into office, the people will tell you, "No, but for you're not loud enough. Then we'll ask. So my counter reaction will be, have you benefited a lot from me than you did from people who are loud enough?" Said, "Yes, I've benefited a lot from you." So, matter what you gain, not the demeanor of who gives you that value. Is that we live at a time where people denounce a value and calibrate it to mean a weakness, either because they cannot have the value or because it doesn't work for them. Someone takes away your value and said, no, Jeremiah, wants to wear a flash. So someone begins to take away what should actually be a good quality, a good value, because either yes, they want to besmirch it or make you feel uncomfortable, but what something should be a good value. But even the most humble people also have values. So I also keep my values, and I also set benchmarks and I set boundaries. And because people sometimes want to, penetrate and abuse your humility, so they get shocked when they find the door locked. They want to poke it because they believe that you're going to respond with kind. Then they will be taken by surprise when you don't act as they anticipated or they predicted you. So don't worry about people turning the fashion of your quality into a disadvantage. Don't worry about that.
Very wise words from the gentleman himself, Mr. Lubega Al-Sayed, the president of the Uganda Sports Press Association. This has been our time. I hope the viewer out there, you've gotten something to learn. And just keep on subscribing, following us. This has been our time, and this is the site. My name remains Mugalu Jeremiah. See you soon.